Welcome back, everyone. It's October 17th, and we've got a lot to unpack today. Some really interesting stories developing.
Yeah, definitely. A lot going on.
So let's dive right in. We've got some interesting movement in the U.S. industrial sector. Bitcoin's making headlines again, as always. And there's this company, Gevo, making some serious waves in sustainable aviation fuel.
Should be a good one.
Yeah. So first up, let's talk about this dip in the U.S. industrial sector. Output's down 0.3%.
Right. And that's interesting because it's not as bad as some analysts were predicting.
Right. But still significant.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, to really understand this, we got to look at the bigger picture. The Boeing strike is definitely having an impact. And then you've got the hurricanes recently, obviously. Those disrupted production.
Right. Makes sense.
So it really just kind of highlights how vulnerable that sector can be to, unforeseen events, which is kind of a scary thought when you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just, airplanes or the areas hit by hurricanes.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking ripple effects here.
Yeah.
This impacts prices for everyday goods, could even affect jobs across different industries.
Exactly. It's all connected.
All right, so let's shift gears here a bit and talk about currency markets, because the European Central Bank just announced a rate cut.
Yeah, that was expected, though. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone was anticipating this 25 basis point reduction to try and boost the Eurozone economy.
Makes sense.
But get this, on the flip side, the U.S. dollar is actually getting stronger.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, we got some surprisingly good data released this morning on retail sales and jobless claims. Seems like things might be a little more stable here than some folks thought.
Huh. Interesting how that works. It's like all these currency pairs, like the EURUSD, they're kind of like a giant mood ring for the global economy. Even the tiniest shift can tell you how confident people are in different regions and how things might play out.
Yeah, and for the average person, that translates to, how far will my dollar actually go,
Right.
especially if you're investing or traveling abroad.
Exactly. It's all connected.
And speaking of things that keep people on their toes, Bitcoin's back at it again. Just briefly touched that $70,000 mark before settling back down.
Yeah. You gotta love Bitcoin. Never a dull moment.
Seriously. But I have to imagine there are some traders out there sweating a bit.
Oh, absolutely. All this talk about potential Federal Reserve rate cuts has everyone on edge. It's like, how much influence do government decisions really have on the crypto market? It's a question everyone's asking.
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question, right?
Exactly. And that's the tightrope that Bitcoin's always walking, trying to stay independent, but also navigating these global forces.
It's a balancing act, for sure. All right, so let's move on from the slightly stressful stuff to something a little more, upbeat.
Yeah.
How about a company whose stock is basically skyrocketing?
Always good news.
Right. Gevo Inc. They saw a 38.2% jump in pre-market trading today.
Wow, 38? That's huge. What's going on there?
So they just got a loan from the U.S. Department of Energy.
Okay.
But it's not just like a small business loan. This is a $1.46 billion with a B dollar loan.
Seriously? Wow, what are they doing with that kind of money?
Sustainable aviation fuel.
Yeah.
That's their game.
Interesting. So this is about more than just Gevo at this point, right? This seems like a
Well.
pretty big deal for green aviation.
Oh, absolutely. This could be a real turning point, It's like a real commitment to finding greener solutions for travel,
Yeah.
which is something that I think a lot of people are looking for these days.
Yeah, for sure. If we could fly without feeling guilty about the environmental impact, that would be a game changer.
Exactly. And speaking of shaking things up, there's this company called D-Travel. They're using blockchain technology to completely change the vacation rental market.
Oh, really? Blockchain and travel. That's an interesting combination. How's that working?
So they're partnering with this company called Fetch.ai.
Hmm?
The idea is to basically cut out the middleman in vacation rentals.
Yeah.
Give more control to the renters and property owners.
Oh, I see. Like a peer-to-peer system, but with more security and transparency.
Exactly. And that's where the AI comes in. They're using AI agents on the Fetch network to make the whole process, like booking and managing rentals, way smoother.
Smart. So it's not just about removing fees, it's about actually making the experience better for everyone involved.
Right. It's like personalized recommendations, secure transactions, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all powered by AI.
That's really interesting. I'm going to have to check that out. And speaking of interesting moves in the tech world.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
Well, we've got Zuora. They're kind of doing the opposite. They're going private.
Oh, yeah. That was big news today. A $1.7 billion deal, right?
Yep. Seems like a lot of tech companies are feeling the pressure of the public markets these days. Going private gives them more room to breathe,
Yeah, it's like they can actually focus on long-term goals and innovation without the constant scrutiny of quarterly earnings reports.
Exactly. They can make the changes they need to make without worrying about Wall Street freaking out.
Makes sense. And speaking of financial disclosures, Learning Technologies, Group Xi, Keyword Studios Pire, and Balanced Commercial Property Trust Limited all filed their Form 8.3s today.
Ah, the good old Form 8.3. Always a source of excitement in the financial world.
Right. For those who don't speak fluent finance, those forms basically tell us about any major changes in shareholding.
Which can sometimes give us a sneak peek into where a company might be headed. Always fun to try and connect the dots.
Wow, that was a lot to take in, even for Tuesday. We covered everything from industrial output to blockchain vacations rentals today.
It's like the world is speeding up, right? There's always something new to wrap our heads around.
No kidding. But hey, that's what we're here for, right? To break it all down and try to make sense of it.
Exactly. And I think today's deep dive highlighted something really important. Like, we talk a lot about economic indicators, right? But at the end of the day, those numbers represent real people, real jobs, real choices that are being made every day.
That's a really good point. It's easy to get lost in the data, but there are human stories behind all of it. Whether it's the workers at Boeing, the travelers looking for more sustainable options, or the tech companies trying to innovate, it all comes back to how we want to shape the future.
Precisely. And speaking of shaping the future, did any of the stories we talked about today stand out to you? I'm still thinking about Gevo and that massive loan. That's a real game changer if they can pull it off.
Yeah, that one's definitely got me thinking, like, imagine a world where flying is not only easier, but also much better for the environment. And it's not just about the planes themselves, it's about the entire system. Sustainable fuel is just one piece of the puzzle.
Totally. And then you've got D-Travel shaking things up with blockchain. I mean, it makes you wonder, what other industries are ripe for disruption? What role will AI and decentralized tech play in the coming years? It's exciting and a little bit daunting at the same time.
I hear you. It feels like we're on the verge of some major shifts, but it's hard to say exactly how it's all going to play out. But hey, that's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Trying to connect the dots and see what the future holds.
Absolutely. The future is unwritten, and we're all writing it together.
Well said. And on that note, that's a wrap on today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next breakdown of the day's most impactful news. Until then, stay curious.